Hi, and welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary here in Hudson. If you haven't seen this show before, my name is Art Bergeron. I'm an attorney. I do elder law. I live in faraway Marlborough. Married a woman from Hudson, though. And I'm at Myrick O'Connell now. There are 70 of us, 40 in Worcester and 20 in Westboro where I work, and 10 in Boston. Because there are so many of us, I get to do nothing but elder law, which is what I really like doing. But this show, of course, has nothing to do with elder law. If you haven't watched it before, you'd know that. This has to do with my friends Frank and Mary and their kids, Peter, Paul, and Mary Jr. And Frank and Mary's goal in life is to live in their house until they die and be buried in the backyard. And if you live in Hudson, that means you want to stay in Hudson. You don't even want to go to Marlborough. And so the question is, who are the people you need to know and what are the programs you need to know about in order to just be able to stay in Hudson? So it is the holidays. It is the holidays. And so with me is my good friend Jackie Kopopoulos, who many of you know because she's been here just forever. Have you literally just been here forever?
I haven't been here forever. I've been doing it for about 7 or 8 months.
Yeah, but I mean, you haven't been in the show forever, but you were in Hudson forever.
We moved to Hudson 51 years ago.
Oh, not quite
just about now.
Just about the time you were born.
Yeah, really.
That's great. So Jackie and I do co-host the show because I figure Jackie really knows a lot more of the people here in Hudson. And so that's why we've had a number of just great guests over the year. And it's been 8 months now that we've been doing it together. That's great.
That's true.
But today I brought a guest. I brought my friend Doug Peck. Now Doug runs an organization called Seniors Helping Seniors, which he can describe. But in general, one of the things I really like about Seniors Helping Seniors is that all of his employees are seniors as well as all of the people that he helps. So I asked Doug to come over and tell a little bit about the organization, but then I also wanted to use that to just have us just talk a little bit about the holidays and about being a senior during the holidays, whether you are married or single or healthy or sick or whatever. And I think especially maybe from our personal experiences we can throw in any, right? But from your experience, kind of professionally dealing with a variety of families, how you deal with all that stuff. So first of all, just give people a sense again about what Seniors Helping Seniors is, which astonished me when I first heard it.
Yeah, we are an in-home agency. We don't do any medical care or personal care, but we do a variety of other things to make sure that people that can stay in the home that want to stay in their home. Yeah. And quite honestly, most people, as we age now, our healthcare system is so good, they don't need constant nurse attention. They don't need to have a doctor there. They don't need to have that kind of attention, but they need them to do other things. They need them to do the laundry because they shouldn't be going downstairs, and most laundries in a lot of homes are in the basement.
Downstairs. Certainly most of the people that we know, right? In our age group, that's where it was. It was always because it was always kind of an
in the basement, right. And if they're on a walker, it's very hard to do things like make the beds or take down curtains and clean them because you just can't balance like that. And so many people are living alone. A spouse has passed away. So oftentimes the other spouse is not driving as much, if at all, and they don't want to cook. They don't want to cook meals for themselves. So they become a little isolated. So our goal is really to sort of fight that isolation. And because all of our employees, and they are paid employees, are seniors, they sort of know what they're going through, because oftentimes they've taken care of a relative themselves. More than one sometimes, either a spouse or an uncle or an aunt. So they really know what to do and anticipate it. And they're not on their smartphones all day long. And they can sit and talk with them and relate to them with very similar experiences. So it really is a remarkably good program. And it's it's one of those simple ideas that just works.
That works well.
That works.
And before we talk about the holidays, I just wanted you to give that one example you gave of a woman, as a widowed woman who is living with her kids.
Yes.
And what sounds like the ideal situation.
Right.
But she still had some issues. Can you just talk about
it? It was one of my first clients. It was a fairly close neighbor of mine. I live in Southborough. And her husband had passed away about a year ago. And they were living in one of the bigger homes in Southborough with her son, who was an executive, and a daughter-in-law, who was also an executive, and 2 teenage boys. And it was just a busy you can imagine a busy, chaotic house.
household.
People are going to work at 7 and not coming back till 8. The kids had a million things to do. And here she was, in the home and really began to feeling fairly isolated because everything was happening around her.
That's the kind of
And it's just the craziness that goes around. She's sitting there, sometimes a little stunned to see what's going on. I mean, she also lived nearby, so she was very familiar with them, but it's not like living there. And so we were asked to come in because she was really alone during the day for the most part, and just to take her out for some walks, prepare a simple lunch for her, and just keep her company for a few hours. I had, because it was 5 days a week, I had 2 people going over for like 3 hours each day. And it turns out, and this was a revelation to me, both the people I had brought over, my employees, they were also from Southborough. One was from Ashland, one was from Southborough. They were widows themselves. And my client, what it turns out is she had never been able to really talk to anyone about being widowed. She couldn't talk to her son. No one, she wasn't certainly going to talk to her daughter-in-law about it. So she began talking to these other 2 women about what they went through, their grieving process. One went to a bereavement group because her husband had gone through hospice. So they were able to really give her a lot of comfort. And she had been on antidepressants because she was depressed. And within about 2 months, they had cut those antidepressants in half because she had somebody there to talk to, somebody there to make an emotional connection with. And really, that's the bottom line with sort of the loneliness that we talk about, is the lack of an emotional connection. I mean, you have it with the family to an extent, but this really becomes just more intimate.
Right.
And people never lose the need to have that kind of intimate, to have like a friend who you could really talk to about things that are bothering you, or they're just there that you need to talk about. And that's what our folks are really, really good at doing.
So earlier today, Doug and I were doing this seminar presentation in Sudbury. We were talking, and it was one of the people that we've had, the geriatric care manager, and they were talking about these kind of last year of your life issues, as we talked about one of our, right, because of your experiences, as a nurse, right? But there was a line that you used that you had just heard, which I hadn't heard before, which was, the line was...
It's a great line. People are medicine for people. And that's really, really true. And it's really, really true for seniors and elders. Because there's, you can give them all kinds of antidepressants, or you can do anything else, but the real medicine is people. And, even when I started this business, after what was an initiation for me was my father passed away. My mother wanted to stay in the house she was at for 40 some odd years.
So she gave you the test.
And so it was the test. And I would go over and she'd have a list to do, and I'd run and do all the stuff, and I'd come back to the house, and my wife, she was the smart one. She said, so what did you do? I did all this. She says, you can get people to do all this other stuff for you, but what she really wants is for you to sit and have a cup of tea and find out how her day went.
Because you can't pay somebody
because
to
you can't
son.
pay someone
Right.
to do, you can now with us, but that's the real point, is that's what she was really looking for, and she missed, because she had one neighbor left in the neighborhood, and they didn't get out to see each other very often. And when bad weather came, none of them could get out because they were afraid to walk down an icy driveway, because they all know a fall was going to put them, in the hospital or long-term care. So that was really the kicker for me, to understand that it's just what they want, is that just to sit there and be acknowledged and listened to, and the advantage for our people going in is that the family doesn't have to hear the story for the 50th or 60th time. It's all new to somebody else. It's all new for the person to tell it, so they can relive things, because again, a lot of the folks that we deal with have some type of short-term memory issues. Well, the short-term memory issues is what happened the last few days or weeks or years. So they certainly remember where they were when on Pearl Harbor Day, they remember all this stuff, and so do my folks. You know, so they have a lot to be able to relate to and talk to.
So there's a lot more in common.
There's a lot more in common.
Now, I'm curious, Jackie, you spent a lot of time at the senior center. You've been really active there for quite a while. Are there many people, when Doug describes all of that, do you find, are there many people there who, that's one of the reasons they're really going to the senior center, is just to kind of get out and to have a circle?
Certainly. It's a socialization. Very few people who go to the senior center volunteer. They go there to have coffee. They go there to play cards. They go there we got some who play pool. We got a quilting class. There are a lot of activities that people go to the senior center for. We have a small group who come in and just sit and have coffee and just kind of enjoy the ambience of being around other people. They might not talk much or contribute much, but they're there. You know,
and I think that's a good point. So you can be there as a talkative person, which some people tend to be, you know, or as a shy person like me, a person that just kind of, you know, but you just feel more comfortable.
Absolutely.
Just being in the presence of some of those folks.
You know, Christmas is coming. The senior center is always a good place to go around the holidays. I know that there's going to be a small Christmas luncheon closer to the holidays before the senior center closes for Christmas.
Which people would call and get the date and the time and all that jazz.
Well, it's right in the calendar, or they could call the senior center and find out what time. They could call, ask for the bus to go and pick them up if they'd like to come, and then the bus would take them back home again. We also have a very, very popular group on Fridays, and people bring their lunch for this. It's called jazz group, you know, and it's a lot of senior citizens who play an instrument, and they all get together and play music, and sometimes
so they kind of improvise.
Sometimes there's a sing-along, but they bring their lunches. It's very informal. Nothing is formal at the senior center.
Right.
Everything is very informal.
But that's the point, because it's kind of really designed so that people can just show up.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
You know, you don't have to just figure, oh God, I'm not part of that group, and so that I really
Absolutely.
and so I really can't come.
Absolutely. There's a nice little library there.
But you make a good point. I think what we should probably ask the folks here to put that information, just that call information and stuff, when they're running this show, because especially during the holidays, if people haven't had a chance to go down and they're feeling like, well, you know, this wouldn't be a bad time, you know, especially if they're feeling at home and they're kind of down in the dumps, right? Because the place is there, right? And I'll tell you, I go to quite a few senior centers, right? Because I do this stuff in about probably 12 towns, and I don't think there's any place that is more welcoming than that senior center. And it's also really well designed that way. You know, it isn't kind of cavernous. Some of the places you go in, it's really cavernous.
No, it's very homey feeling.
And the folks are always there. So one of the reasons why I had asked Doug to come down was to talk about issues that may be coming up, which are, I want to say, unique to the holidays, right? But that really come up in the holidays, right? Because we've got this stretch of time. It's always an unusual family time, right? It's always different. Sometimes unusual in a good way. Sometimes unusual in a really bad way, you know. But it's always but from your I would bet that from your experience you've seen some of these issues playing out, right? And I'd just like you to talk about that, and especially about issues that may be unique to a situation where somebody really has had a recent loss, or has physical issues, or perhaps has some memory issues, because these are the issues that we're all facing, right?
Yeah, particularly when families are scattered and they're coming back to see a parent or parents that they haven't seen for maybe 6 months or longer.
Right.
So generally,
which is not uncommon.
It's not uncommon nowadays at all. I mean, sometimes they only get to visit at Christmas because they're going to visit the other set of parents who are also elderly and may live in another different state.
And so they're blowing in.
So they're coming in very quickly, and it's.
And by the way, I got one in D.C., I got one in Austin, Texas, I got one in Colorado Springs. So no one just drops by to say hello. So so there is this whole anticipation around the holidays where people come home.
And you know, a lot of times they're on a high speed course to get everything done. They're going to see some other friends while they're there, and you know, they have a lot planned. And to come into a house that's been very quiet for 6 months or so, with kids, maybe a dog, and you know, and the people, is just, you have to stop and think how really disruptive that is to the person. And they become very, very anxious about what's going to happen. And when they're like that, they're just not enjoying the visit. You know, the best thing is to think about it, what you want to accomplish, but when you're at the house, go slow. Really slow things down, because if you've been with seniors for a long time, you know that they're not in the pace of the normal world. If they're not out there on a regular basis, things are moving a lot slower for them. You need to adapt to them. They are not going to adapt to you. So if you have grandkids, my advice is have just one of them go sit. If it's a single parent, you know, if it's a single grandparent, go sit with them for a little while, just the two of them, and get a chance to talk and make a connection. Because what happens when everybody's there, there's no connection being made. You know, you're sitting around the table with 7 or 8 people. Your parent might be at the head, but there's all this buzz going on around you that, again, it's a whirlwind to you. So you need to take it slow. You know, it's also a good time.
Well, that's a really interesting point, because I know we have a good friend who's from Hudson, actually, and now she lives in Westboro. Mm-hmm. And well, we'll be taking her in February for her 99th birthday.
Oh,
right?
wow. Mm-hmm.
But I remember a few years ago we had a kind of an event for her, right? And so at the Wayside Inn, and so there were maybe 30 people. But of course, she didn't talk to any of them.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single person, because everybody was just, you know, kind of stopping in to say hello, and then, of course, going to talk to other folks that were there. This notion of actually thinking, if your family's coming in, you're going to try to consciously have each person really sit down and talk to them.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
And my advice is don't go to a restaurant, because it's just too noisy, and the exact same thing is going to happen. If your parent is at an assisted living facility, either with a memory unit or without, all of them have small dining rooms that you can use. Go there. So there's only 7 or 8 of you, and just take it slow. They're not going to eat a lot. The whole idea of a 4 or 5 course meal with all this stuff, forget about it. Simplify it for them, because you really have to look at, say, what do they want? What's going to really make them happy, not you. And it's hard, because you have all these traditions, and you still think, well, I want to do this because Mom always liked these traditions, but now Mom doesn't really care about them anymore. You know, it's a good time to make some new traditions.
That's also an interesting thing when you think about our kids, because they're always going to, especially the ones that are away. It's like, so they're always going to think of us the way that we were before they left.
Right.
And they show up and they kind of almost want us to be that, right?
Yep.
Now, do you have kids that live close? Do you have kids that live far?
I have 4 who live close, and 1 who's out of state. So for our traditional, and I'm still up for it, we all go to Mass together, Christmas Eve, and then we come back to our place and order out Chinese food and open up gifts and spend some time. It's chaotic, but it's, you know, it's fine. When my mother was with us, I did something different.
Because she was there for a while, right?
She wasn't. She never lived with me. She lived at New Horizons. But she would. I would have Christmas Day over at our cafe, which was bigger, and
our cafe. That was the
over in the Esplanade.
Right at the Esplanade.
Right at the Esplanade, where there was an elevator and access. And she was up for this. She liked this, and we would have extended family come, people that she hadn't seen for the year. My mother didn't have any memory problems. I mean, she was really quite alert and with it, so I didn't have to deal with that. But certainly, you know, I changed my traditions very frequently as the years went on, due to my sister's health, my mother's health, my brother's health, so I kind of adapted. And now we do this, and when I get tired of it, I'll say, I'm tired of doing it.
Well, that's great.
You have it at your house, and we'll come, and then we'll leave.
Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right.
I feel so free with my children to do that.
And that's great because everybody's comfortable around the room.
Right.
One point I'd like to make, just addressing, I think people have a lot of, they have memories of what Christmas used to be like. And now there are so many people who are part of those Christmases who are gone now.
Right.
There are people who have just lost loved ones around the holiday, and they just aren't into the holiday spirit or getting out. And I say there's no wrong way to cope. If you want to stay in, fix yourself a nice meal, watch a movie that you like. It's only one day, and if you feel like you don't want to spend it with a whole bunch of people because you need to move past your own grief or whatever it is, give yourself permission to do that. I think a lot of people feel like, well, I shouldn't let the family down, or
I have to stiff up a lip.
And
what's the point? What's the point?
The thing is that family members can go over and stop in for very brief periods of time, but respect that need to just have that space,
Which really kind of goes back to something you had just
It does,
said.
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
It is.
Consciously trying to modify it as opposed to simply trying to relive yet last year's holiday. Right.
I think that a good thing to ask the senior in your life is, if you have a mother like I did, what would you like to do this year? Do you want to see all the same people? Do you want to just go out and have a quiet dinner?
Right.
What would you like to do?
Yeah.
And let them.
Well, they should be involved in the preparation and everything, and deciding. I think that's a big part of it, because I think you're right. That's another part that I was going to talk about, is that they feel left out. Everything is being done around them, and they don't feel like they're really part of it, because they're used to contributing. They're used to making the dinner, making cookies, doing all the stuff that a lot of them can't do anymore.
You did it all before.
Right. So now, if you just say, what would you like? And I think it's so important, particularly if there are folks coming in out of town that haven't seen for a while, is to ask questions like that, but also spend the time to say, so what's changed? How are you feeling? What are you doing? Look around the house. Is there leftover food in the refrigerator that shouldn't be there? Is her medication up to date? If you find a pill bottle that she should be taking that's still full of pills, and the date on it is 3 months old, something's going on.
Something's right.
So there's a chance for you to look around a little bit, but you have to be sensitive to that, and you have to, again, slow the pace down a little bit and spend some time with them to find out what's happening.
Now, can you just talk a little bit about, because I know many of your clients are folks who have got some memory issues, right? And the families of folks who've got some memory issues. Can you just kind of just talk a little bit about that, about aspects of this which could be unique to folks who have got memory issues in terms of what all of these things?
Yeah, and when a family member has a memory issue, it really does affect the whole family, because depending on where they are, the family, if they haven't seen them for 6 months, generally they've declined from what they've seen. Even if they've talked to them on the phone, 10 minutes on the phone once a week, most people with some form of dementia can fool anybody. It's spending a whole day with them where you really get to see what their reality is. And that's the key. It's their reality, and it's going to be different than yours. And you really can't argue with them. You really can't say, no, Mom, you can't wear that out because, it's winter now, and you don't want to wear those shoes or that dress. You need to wear a coat. It's their reality. So you've got to learn to step into that and accept where they are. And that's what puts a lot of stress on the family, to really understand, okay, he or she is declining, And we now have to be thinking about what are our next strategies. So hopefully, if that's the case, if they're in an assisted living facility, you're going to speak to someone there about how's mom doing, what's going on, what are some of the issues, what are the issues you're having with her. If not, it might be somebody like one of our employees that can give feedback, because they spend a lot of time with her. She is doing this and she's doing that, but she's not doing this anymore. So you really need to understand that, and again, take it slow. What overwhelms people with dementia is bright lights, which are, you have flashing Christmas lights and everything now.
Right.
A lot of noise because they're just not used to that.
Experience, which
the whole restaurant experience.
Because you're always tempted to do that. You say, well, we don't have to set up anything, blah, blah, blah. We'll just go to a restaurant. But as opposed to something simple at home.
Simple at home, because it can really frighten them, because they just are not necessarily going to understand what's going on.
I like the idea of Chinese
And some will
food.
see it as a threat. Yeah, bring it in.
Yeah.
Bring it in, load up, and then
And
just
by
sit
the way,
around.
like all restaurants do takeout now. I mean, I bet all the restaurants in downtown Marlboro now.
Absolutely.
From the best, the biggest to the smallest, everybody's got takeout.
Yeah.
So you can really bring the meal home without risking that kind of all that chaos.
And don't push anything on her. If she used to like mushi pork and she won't eat it now,
that's
good. Fine.
That's all good. That's right.
Limit the alcohol for that meal, so nobody is going to get a little out of hand.
Right.
Not the person necessarily,
Right.
but it could be somebody
Right.
who is going to get a little out of hand. Limit that at least for that meal, so you can spend some quality time together and enjoy each other.
And enjoy the holiday.
Right.
Well, Jackie, as usual, thank you very much for doing this with me.
You're
And thank you
welcome.
very much for doing this year. I know this. I remember originally Jackie was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I'm kind of shy about it.
I am not shy, but I am committed.
But you are committed. And Doug, thank you. I think the
welcome.
work that you do, the work
wonderful.
that just wonderful.
Yep.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So those are some tips for the holidays. Maybe they're relevant to you. I'm also going to mention, they're always actually looking to hire more seniors. That could be you. So if you are younger, right? No, I want to say younger. Your oldest senior that works for you is how old?
90.
90. That's right. Wow. Younger than
The part-time, so.
younger
Yep.
than 100 maybe. And you think that this would be something you really like to do, and as a thing that just is. They don't pay a ton, but they pay well, right? And it could be a really good thing. So thank you very much for watching. Happy holidays to all of you. Thank you,
Merry
Doug.
Christmas, Happy
Merry
New
Christmas,
Year.
Happy New Year's,
Yeah.
Happy Hanukkah.
Hanukkah, yeah.
Enjoy the holidays. We'll see you next year. Thank you.
Bye.